Hey there everyone, welcome to the channel. Very first video over here and very excited to dive into some games. Now, with this first video, I struggled a bit on a topic. Did I want to make it something grandiose and philosophically impactful and all that? And I decided, I'm just a dumb hick from the hills. I just want to talk about some games. So this here's the spooky season, or as I like to call it, my favorite time of the year. And in keeping with that tradition, I grabbed another forgotten gem off the shelf to do a dive into. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you the complete book of Necromancers. I mean, what better book to grab during the Halloween season than a book dedicated to those who raise the undead? The Complete Book of Necromancers is a supplement book for the AD&D second edition game line. It was published way back in '95 by then TSR. Steve Kurtz is the fellow that authored this here book, and sadly I couldn't find a whole lot about this fella, so we'll be concentrating on the book itself. The book was edited by Matt Forbeck, who's edited a number of RPG books throughout the long years. Art includes black and white treatments by Carl Waller, with color art by Brom, Jeff Easley, John and Laura Lakey, and Robbie Rappel. Clocking in at a trim 128 pages, the book is typical of the rule supplements of its time. You may notice the cover is blue instead of the most often brown ones. As a bit of trivia, several of you probably already know, the brown line of books were intended for players, while the blue ones were intended for the dungeon master. I say intended deliberately, and we might as well call out the elephant in the room right here. Keeping this brief as I don't want to bog down a review with a history lesson, way back in the day when I was growing up and just learning to play these awesome games, there was a significant movement within the United States to ban, burn, and destroy RPG books, among other things. This was called the Satanic Panic. It boiled down to parents and other folks believing that playing an RPG equated to devil worship. Even though, in the vast majority of RPGs, demons and devils were there to be hunted down, slain, and their treasures stolen. But I digress. So TSR feared a book like this about playing a necromancer raising the dead might play into those fears. In an attempt to sidestep that, they wrote the book under the pretense this was all intended for the DM and not the players. The introduction itself even states the book is for DMs who wish to create unique and memorable spellcasters for their campaigns. Except there's a ton of rules and distinctions in the book that make absolutely no sense for a DM to want or need. However, if you look at these anomalies from the point of view as being intended for a player character's use, they make a heck of a lot more sense. And there endeth the history lesson. On to the book itself. Chapter 1 follows the flow of the AD&D 2nd Edition Player's Handbook sections on character creation. We dive into a discussion of ability scores, races, notes on spell restrictions and such, and proficiencies. Interestingly, there is a whole sidebar of pre-generated character stats using all the methods of the time if you don't want to roll and just want to grab a set. Further, there's a reprinting of the level progression table, which also has proficiencies and saving throws. This is the first and only time I've ever seen this information all in one place. I wish they would have done it more, but I digress. Then we move into kits, those extra little definitions that really help to round out a character concept. We're presented with the archetypal necromancer, which is exactly what you imagine it is. Next up is the anatomist, which is essentially a scientific-based necromancer that reminds me a lot of Peter Cushing's character in Curse of Frankenstein, if you want to draw inspiration from there. We also have the Death Slayer, a character who is devoted to hunting down and ending the undead. There's the Philosopher, who is more interested in the esoterics of undeath, and the Undead Master, who specializes in the creation and summoning of minions. Hell yes. Finally, there are a couple suggestions for kits like the Witch and the Ghoul Lord that aren't fleshed out, but are provided as a springboard for future kits. Then we dive into some fascinating non-weapon proficiencies, those of anatomy, necrology, netherworld knowledge, spirit lore, and venom handling. Chapter 2 touches briefly on dual class options for a necromancer. Nothing more fun than a master of undeath that's deadly in a melee, right? Along with a note on psionics. Then it dives into the fun stuff, vile pacts and dark gifts. I can't help thinking the 5e D&D Warlock design probably took some inspiration from this book, but I digress. As necromancers delve into the dark arts delve back into them with gifts like augmented hit points, a chilling touch, the ability to command undead, fear auras, shadow forms, unnatural ability scores, and a whole lot more. This chapter concludes with a discussion on race considerations as well, touching on monstrous races as opposed to the standard ones in Chapter 1. Chapter 3 is titled The Price, and it details the cost of wielding nether powers. We dive into stigmas, deformities, afflictions, along with the mental costs for wielding such dark power. Chapter 4 details a solid range of necromancy themed spells to choose from, like animate dead animals, locate remains, embalm, and many more. Up until this point, the book has focused on the mage half of the equation, the specialist wizard. Chapter 5 dives into the other side, that of the Death Priests, providing that sweet expanded character progression table again, as we saw earlier in the book. I find myself again wishing they'd stuck with that for other character treatments. Oh well. Then we dive into sample priesthoods that might lean toward the dead and what comes after. We've got gods of death, of murder, of pestilence, suffering, and undeath for players to choose from. And these are just the suggestions. I've found myself musing about, about a more benevolent deity, one that allows the communing with the dead, bringing back heroes to fight for a noble cause and so on, like a Valkyrie or something. So there's room in here for customization as well. Chapter 6 gives us a plethora of priest spells, just as Chapter 4 did for mages. We get fun little spells like Spectral Servant, Death's Door, and many others. Chapter 7 is a big treatment on everyone around the necromancer, like apprentices, henchmen, minions, and secret societies they may belong to. Chapter 8 covers items, magical or otherwise, a necromancer might benefit from, including poisons, potions, and other fun stuff. Chapter 9 rounds things out with campaign ideas and NPC descriptions of the various art throughout the book, if a DM was so inclined to use them. Reviews were positive, but also critical. Rick Swan, reviewing the book in Dragon Magazine number 222 from October of 95, found the book a welcome addition, but also tame. He likened it to something far nicer than, say, Call of Cthulhu or Werewolf, criticizing it for not developing the obvious threads deeper than simply a treatment of an AD&D 2e necromancer. Alex Lucard, from Die Hard Gaming fan back in 2013, showcased the other side and showered the book with its deserved praise. He mentioned players often cite this tome as the single greatest supplement in 2nd edition and found himself agreeing with that notion. For myself, I found it a nearly overwhelming wealth of information on filling out a character way far beyond the traditional AD&D 2e specialist wizard. From the spells, to the proficiencies, to the dark gifts, it gave me everything I was looking for and more. Absolutely a 5-star recommendation for me, and I encourage you all to get yourself a copy too. Now the sad news, the book itself is not available at all on Amazon that I could find, and going for well over $100 over on eBay. So it is by far one of the priciest bits of lost AD&D goodies that I know of at the time of this writing. However, the good news is that I have it on good authority. The book itself may be easily obtainable, at least in PDF copy, if one were to, say, sail the high seas, so to speak. There also appears to be a copy you can get from DriveThru RPG for a 10 spot, so that ain't bad at all if you don't want to go sailing. And there you have it, folks. AD&D 2nd Edition's Unholy Grail from 95, the complete book of Necromancers. That's all we got for today. I thank each and every one of you for stopping by today. Give me a moment of your time. Now, it is a chilly Tabletop Tuesday, overcast and a bit on the nasty side, so perfect conditions to shut in, gather around the table, roll some dice, make memories of your own today. Make sure you drink you a little water, get some exercise too. But I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one.